Erev Tov L'Kulam. We are now preparing for Shabbat, Parashat Shoftim. So next week, by the way, schedule note for next week, probably Thursday night, we're not going to be here for the class. We're probably going to do either a pre-recording before, or share before, we have to see, because we have the wedding. We have the Badalov wedding on Thursday night. So we'll see what's going to be for next week. Bez Hashem, there will be a shir, just not going to be Thursday night.
Will be on the other boy?
Yes, Mazal Tov. Okay, Parshat Shoftim. As we start Elul, the Bnei Yisachar has a very interesting idea that's from this week's parasha. In this parasha, we have a mitzvah that tells us that we shouldn't have. Let's read the pasuk. V'lo takim lecha matzeva asher saneh Hashem elokecha, which translates, and you should not erect for yourselves a pillar, which Hashem your God hates. Which means avodah zarah. You shouldn't create a matzeva that is a avodah zarah. Hashem doesn't like it. Bnei Yisachar has a very interesting take to the word matzeva. He says the word matzeva is from the lashon of matziv. What's matziv? Situation. A mood. So he says, the Bnei Yisachar, lo takim lecha matzeva means don't create for yourself a situation, a pillar. Which type of situation? Some people think that this is it. This is my life. This is my box. This is where I am. And I'm not checking out of there. I'm not going to move up. I'm not going to move down. I'm stuck in this box. This is me. A lot of times you have on these forms, check who you are. Native American, Hawaiian, this, that. I always try to put rather not answer or other. I never put anything right. I always put other or rather not answer. But that's just me. But the idea is people check into boxes, and that's the box I am in for life. The Bnei Yisachar says, no. Lo takim lecha matzeva. Do not create for yourself a matziv. That's it. I'm done. This is the only place I am. Because that's a very, very, very dangerous situation to put yourself in. We spoke about it in the past, but there are elephants. Elephants, they weigh 24,000 pounds. They stand 13 feet tall. Their trunks can rip branches off trees. And despite all their power, elephants can be chained. You can chain them up. How could such powerful creatures be chained? So what's the answer? You started when they were a baby. When the baby elephant was born, they put a strong rope. And every time the baby elephant would struggle, it would realize he can't break the rope, and his legs would hurt from trying to move out of the rope, until he eventually conditioned himself to believe that he can't break out of this rope. And now he becomes a 24,000 pound creature that can do anything, and he's tied to a silly chain that if he pushes it, he pulls it, he can get out of it. But that's the idea. That in life, a lot of times we think we're stuck in a certain situation. We can't move away from there. To certain extremes, sometimes that's what suicide is. Right? Because people think they have no way out. They want out. But the truth is, there's always room to maneuver. Always room to move. In fact, it's incumbent upon us. It's mechuyab upon us. There's a hiyuv on us to move. We can't get stuck in that matziv. We can't get stuck in a situation. We cannot say that this is it. I'm stuck in my life. I only learn one mesechet. I only do one thing. I only do one this, one that. No, you cannot get stuck. The great Kiddushat Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Meberditchev, the story goes that he was once working on a certain midah. He wanted to go up in levels. And he was having a very hard time. Till eventually he said, you know what? It must be that I'm not supposed to reach that level. My midah, I tried. And as he finished, and as soon as he comes to this conclusion that he's done, he can't continue to work on it, he walks outside and he sees a store owner and a wagon driver having a conversation. The wagon driver brought merchandise, and the store owner tells the wagon driver, bring the merchandise inside. And the wagon driver says, I can't. The store owner says, but I can't either. And they're going back and forth. And finally, the store owner takes out a couple of dollars, gives it to the wagon driver, and all of a sudden the wagon driver is able to bring the merchandise inside. So obviously, if Hashem shows you something, He shows you something for a reason. He says, you see over here, this guy said he can't do it. But then he was given a few dollars, and he was able to do it. He says that's the truth with everyone. We think we're stuck in a certain place. We think we can't do more. We only have to do but if we realize that we could do it, I can't is just because we're stuck there. We just think we can't move out. But if you realize you really could do it, for a little incentive, a little money, all of a sudden, you can see it with your children all the time. You promise them a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All of a sudden, the kid who couldn't sit straight for 2 minutes, he's sitting straight for a whole hour, right? Because he knows he has his goal there that he wants to reach. And that's the idea, Rabotai, that we really also are able to get out of this rut, so to speak, that we're in, the situation that we're in, and move out of there. Right? There's a famous story from the Alter Misabotka. The Alter Misabotka was once, as a youth, he was in the marketplace, and he saw that there was this two merchants. They got into a fight with each other, and it was a lady selling beans. She got in a fight with her neighbor that was selling something else, and she started screaming and yelling at the neighbor. And then all of a sudden, a customer comes up to the booth, and what happens? She's all smiles. Yes, how can I help? Customer buys for a few pennies, and yet her whole demeanor changes. Same thing. Person thinks he's stuck, he's angry, he's this, he's that. He can't get out of it. I'm always an angry person. I'm always a nervous person. I'm always a stingy person. I'm always a miserly person. Right? Someone thinks he's like that. Truth is, with the right incentive, you can make all the changes. So what's our incentive? What's our incentive to make a change? No, Rabotai. What's our incentive to make a change?
What was his incentive? To change his midah.
Oh, 1 year of life to do mitzvot.
Okay, we're also saying good. We want another year of life, so we have to do something to get it. The incentive should be, and so to speak, another understanding is that we have to remember not to sell ourselves short. Okay, the only reason why we feel we're stuck in certain situations is because sometimes we don't feel ourselves. We're like this elephant. We think we're chained. We don't realize that we have a chelik of Hashem inside of us, right? If we have this portion of Hashem inside of us, this neshama that is boundless, it cannot be put into a boundary. Its ability is to shine. You can have Rabbi Akiva. He knows nothing. He knows everything. That's the examples of what neshama can do, right? Even the Eved of Avram Avinu, Eliezer, he was considered arur, cursed. But he became, in the end, Baruch, he became blessed. He changed from curse to blessing. How? Because he could. You just need to want to. You just have to want to. You just have to try. Right? If there's a will, there's a way. We can't get stuck. You cannot build for yourself a situation and stay in that situation. We cannot do that. That is the Bnei Yisachar on that part of the pasuk. Actually, we brought a story from the Kedushat Levi, from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev. The Kedushat Levi has another understanding of this pasuk. V'lo takim lecha matzeva. So, Rabbi Yisachar took the word matzeva and said it's matzav, the matzav. The Kedushat Levi, he takes the word lecha, and he says, what is lecha?
You.
What does that mean? He says, on Yom Tov, Chol Hamoed, we say, Chatzi LaHashem, Chatzi Lachem. Half of the day, so to speak, you go on your trip, and half the day you're studying the Beit Midrash. So he says, the Lecha in this pasuk is talking about the Lachem, your portion. And what it's saying in the pasuk, V'lo takim lecha matzeva. don't make your olam hazeh a matzeva. Don't make your olam hazeh an avodah zarah. Don't make your physical sustenance, your physical being, your gashmiut, don't make that your avodah zarah. Why? Because today, especially in the Western world, we have what's called the pursuit of happiness. Everybody is looking to be happy. Everyone is looking to kaifavat. Kaifuim, right? Everybody wants to enjoy. And so we make our physical world an avodah zarah. I was reading in a article maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, during the COVID, that the backyards became a status symbol. Backyards became a symbol of your wealth. Because during COVID, you couldn't go anywhere, right? So you had your backyards. So those who had money had a nice yard, and they put paver stones, and they got a nice grill, an outdoor kitchen, they got a fireplace, they have a pool, right? That was a symbol status, but that's the idea. You now made your physicality an avodah zarah. You're stressing too much on it. Here in the Pinim al Torah, he wants to say the reason why people do this is they're confusing. They're confusing happiness with fun. Right? Fun and happiness seem to be going together. Says Rav Sheinbaum in Pinim al Torah, that's not true. Fun is something that you get excited about the moments that you're doing this activity. And when you're done that activity, the fun is gone.
It's temporary happiness.
Fun is excitement during an activity.
Right, that's happiness.
Is it? It's
temporary
fun.
One. A temporary one, but
It's fun. He says the definition of a happiness is more contentment. Is that I am happy. I'm satisfied. It's not just temporarily. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that lasts. Okay? Think about it for a second. Here he brings Rav Yaakov Galinsky, a beautiful mashal. He says once, in the middle of the day, a walk-in client walks into the psychiatrist. And he tells the psychiatrist, I'm very depressed. I'm thinking of committing suicide. I'm very, very depressed. So they start talking, and the psychiatrist says, hey, this is a big case. This is something I got to work on. It's going to take a year, but we have to start today, but every day. And the guy says, I don't have time. I really need something right now to get me back, because I'm really contemplating suicide. So the psychiatrist said, you know what? I think I have just the thing. Across the street, there's a big theater. And now there is a comedian who came from out of state, and he's having shows, and he's hilarious. I went myself. He's so funny. You know what? If you go there and you listen to him and you laugh a lot, you have fun, it's going to start getting you back to the right parts. And this man said to the psychiatrist, you're killing me even more now. He says, why? He says, I am the comedian from across the street. He's the comedian. You know, and it's not a joke. If you look in the records of a lot of Hollywood comedians, they committed suicide. There was actually a very famous one, it was 10, 15 years ago. Williams, Robert Williams, he was very famous, with lots of money. And he killed himself. He was an older guy too. He was very depressed. Robin Williams, his name was. He killed himself. And he wasn't the only one. Multiple. But they're having fun. Who's having fun? Everyone thinks the guys in Hollywood are having fun. They have everything they want. They have the money. They have the status. They have the people. They have the cars. They have the houses. And yet they're the ones committing suicide by the number. Why? Because they have fun. But they don't have any happiness. Happiness. There's no substance. That's what we're saying. Happiness is something that you feel. It's something that you have. Right? That goes back to that famous story that the real happy guy doesn't really have anything, right? That's the king looking for the shirt of the happy guy, and then he finds the guy who's really happy, but he doesn't have a shirt, right? Because if he had a shirt, he wouldn't be so happy, right? The idea is that activities that you think are making you happy is just fun, and fun comes and fun goes. Now, whether you can have fun or not, you need to have fun in life. Sure. At the right time, in the right place, for the right type of fun, of course. It should be done. But that, you should never mix up happiness for fun or fun for happiness. They're two different things. Here in the Pneuim al Torah, he shares a story that's shared from Rav Shlomo Price. Rav Shlomo Price says that there is a true story. There was a man who he came to a shul to daven where his son was living, and he sees there's a guy who sees him and walks over to him and says, "I don't know if you remember me, but me and you, we used to daven in the same shul, whatever we used to live." He says, "Oh wow, so nice to meet you. How was your family and stuff like that?" And this man says, "Tell you the truth, not so good." He says, "My son, who he was, we had a little difficulty, raising him up, but eventually he went to work, and he was working at a hospital, and he met a Christian girl, and he really came to like her, and eventually she made him reject all of Torah. He converted to Christianity, and he became a priest for the Christians." And the other man who hears this says, "I'm so sorry to hear this." He says, "But I just, what's bothering me," this man, the first man says, whose son happened to, he says, "I don't understand. Me and you, we raised on the same block, in the same shul. My kid and your kid went to the same yeshiva. Your kid, he's shomer Torah and mitzvot. And my child, he became a priest for the Christians. How can this be?" So, this man said, "I really don't have the answer. I don't think anyone can have the answer." But he says, "B'derech klal, I once heard from my Rav like this. He says there are two ways to serve Hashem. There's a way that you serve Hashem, and there's some parents like this, some people like this, who complain. They wake up early, they go to shul, they stay late, but when they come home, I'm tired, this hurts, that hurts. If only I can sleep a little longer. Why do they have to schlep today at davening? Why is the shul daven so early? Why is these things?" And he just complains. So what happens? The child hears these complaints and says, "Daddy, why are you doing this if you don't like it?" He says, "Hashem said so. I have to do it. So what does the kid think? The kid says, "Okay, my dad has to do it because Hashem told him, but I'm not going to do it. I don't want to come home complaining every day." And then there's a second group of parents. Those are the parents who come home and they're excited. "Ooh, Shabbos is coming. Let's go. Sukkot is coming. We got to wrap the lulav. We have to put the Yadas and Aravot together. Let's do it. We got to do it. Oh, wow." And there's excitement in the air. There's a preparation in the air. It's not complaint mode, but rather it's happy to do. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he said a similar story. He said that, he said it was all based on Sudash Lishi. He said in one family, the father just came and spoke Divrei Torah that nobody understood. For a half hour, he understood it. It was a very advanced level. No one else understood it. So all his kids went over there. The other family, the guy wasn't a Talmud Chacham, so he came home and he sang songs. Kiesh Mer Shabbat. He gave excitement, and the kids liked it. They're all Shomer Torah Mitzvot. There has to be an excitement for the kids. It has to be there with happiness. It has to be contentment. If you're not going to, nobody wants, especially in today's Western society, it's all about pursuit of happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. You need to have that happiness there, but true happiness is contentment in the situation that I am. And so complaints are never helpful. Then if you want to complain, that's your That's your private time. You can talk to Hashem and tell him I have this and this issues and help me with this and that. If a person really understands what Hashem gives him, he'll be like Rav Zusha, who had nothing, and he said that Hashem must have given me exactly what I needed with nothing, right? They came to him and said, how do you live such a bitter life? How did you live? He said, me? Bitter life? What do you mean? I have everything I need. And he started dancing. He have all these stories of Rav Zusha. But that's the idea. We have to be happy. We have to show our happiness. And if a person right now is not at that level, he doesn't realize that Torah and Mitzvot is happy for him, well, there's a lot of things in life that we don't realize right now, but we know this is the truth, right? We know gravity exists. No one can show me, no one can explain it to me, but gravity exists. Well, guess what? In that same hulk, in that same way, the happiness is in living a religious life. Living a life of Torah and Mitzvot. True Torah and Mitzvot. Okay? And this is the idea that says, the Kedushat Levi, that you cannot make don't make for yourself your olam haba, your olam hazeh. Don't make your olam hazeh, your physical, your gashmiut, a matzeva. Don't make that an avodah zarah. Don't pursue the excitements and luxuries, because that's not going to bring you happiness. All right. For our third and final lesson on this week's parasha, it's a two-parter, and it's based. It's based on the part of the parasha that tells us about the king. So we know that in Judaism, we have a king, and the king has certain restrictions. The king cannot marry many wives, right? And although King Solomon thought that he would be allowed to, he realized that that was an error. King can't get many horses. We don't want to go back to Mitzrayim. The king needs to have how many Sifrei Torot? He has to have two. Two Sifrei Torahs on hand all the time. And the Pasuk says, why? Livilti rum levavo me'ahav. So that his heart does not become haughty. Me'achav on top of his brothers. Uvitu sur min ha-mitzvah yaminu small. And so that he shouldn't leave the mitzvot. Why? It's Pashat. When someone is in a position of authority, right, and kingship being extreme authority, supreme authority, you cannot be more of a malchut.
Above the law.
You're above the law. You're above everything. So, like there was once a famous politician that said, "Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely." Okay, it's very true. Unless he has two Sefer Torah and restrictions on him. You have to have, I mean, in Lahavdal, Afei Avdalot, that's why possibly in the United States, when they made the Constitution, they tried to make checks and balances, right? They made three parts of the federal government. This way, there should be no one authority that ever becomes a supreme power and takes over everything. It was a way to prevent this from happening. But that's an idea, okay, for many separations. But that's the idea here. The idea here is there has to be restrictions on the king that you can't do everything. And in fact, you have a Sefer Torah with you at all times. Two of them. Why? Why two Sefer Torah? Why Sefer Torah has to be with him all the time? Why can't they have a Navi walk into him once a week and give him a shiur? Why can't they have the rabbi show up, talk to him every other day? Why has to have a Sefer Torah on hand all the time? There is a true story that happened to Rav Yosef Posner. He was the son-in-law of the Noda B'Yehuda. He was a big Talmid Chacham, and he was a very sought-after speaker. He would give brilliant lectures, and he would speak around in Europe, and he would travel with his wife. But every time he finished his shiur, he finished his lecture, his wife would walk into the room where he was, and she would start screaming at him, "You fool, you tippish, why did you do this? Why did you do that?" in front of everybody. Every single time he spoke in public, she came and she started to embarrass him. And she started nagging him in front of people. And then suddenly, he passed away. hundreds and hundreds of people came to his funeral. And everybody got up and spoke about him, said that he was the greatest, and he had a difficult life. Obviously, his wife was very difficult. But he was a great man. And after all the Hispadim, his wife comes in front of the coffin. And everybody's about to pull her back. She's going to start screaming at her dead husband now. Right? Just giving him when he's alive. Just giving him now. They try to stop her. She says, please, you have to let me speak. So finally, they said, okay. And she starts to cry. And she says, all these years, she's talking to the Mit. She says, all these years, I fulfilled my duties as a loyal wife who listens to the wishes of her husband. And due to my loyalty and respect for your greatness, she says, I did what you asked of me. Even it was so hard. Now I can finally tell you the truth. People came closer to listen. And then she says, despite how difficult it was for me, I kept the promise and commitment you asked me to do. That anytime someone gave you kavod, that I should come and start to embarrass you and belittle you. And so that the kavod would not get to your head. I kept that promise to you. But now I can finally say in front of the people the truth. That I really loved you and I really respected you. We have to go into the mindset of Rav Yosef Posner, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha. Why did he have his wife do this to him? His wife. So they want to say over here that a wife is the other half of the person. Someone who's always there. He needed someone who's closest to him to always give him a reality check. To make sure he doesn't go out. So they say based on this, perhaps that's why the king needs 2 Sefer Torah. He needs 2 Sefer Torahs. Why? So it should always be around him at all times. Not just I'm going to look at it once a week. I'm not going to just listen to the rabbi once a week or I'll learn it once a time. No, it's got to be physically with you all the time. So any move you do, you're thinking, am I doing it right, doing it wrong? That's what has to be on the king's mind at all times. That has to be in everybody's mind. Are we following in the path of the Torah? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Who is checking and balancing us? By the way, we spoke about this. Chaim Shmulevitz says, Chaim Shmulevitz in the Sichat Musar says that every man's wife, Hashem has blessed them with a special ability to reality check their husband, and to make sure he's doing right. And she's the only one who can sniff out his problems. It's a special trait that she has. And if she doesn't do that job, she gets punished for it. So it's obviously the job has to be done correctly. You can't have them running like crazy now and saying, I have a job, but it has to be done with chachma. Right, that's why they say women. Yeah. That's why they say women have bina. They have deep understanding. Because the deep understanding is for them to know how to bring it out. Because anytime you tell somebody you this, and you tell them over and over again, no one's going to want to listen to you. No one's ever going to change anything about it. It has to be done with the woman, with a feminine trait of love and cherish and niceness and nurturing. And that brings the real change. But they have that ability and they have that responsibility. And that's perhaps why Rabbi Yosef Posner insisted that his wife always embarrass him as soon as kavod starts to come his way. To end off on this idea over here, it says in the Pasuk, talking about the king, it says, V'hayita imo, the Sefer Torah has to be with him, V'karavo kol yemei hayav. And he has to read it all the days of his life. Just like his wife is going to be with him all the days of his life, right? The Sefer Torah has to be with him all the days of his wife. But I heard another interesting pshat. They say, what does it mean? V'kara bo kol yemei hayav. V'kara bo kol yemei hayav. He should read in it all the days of his life. Not read it all the days of his life, but he should read in it all the days of his life. That means while reading the Torah, you should be able to see your life inside it. If you're following the Torah, you should be able to see your life in the pages of the Torah. Why am I behaving this way? Because the Torah says this. Why am I doing this? Because the Torah says that. When you have deep understanding to what the Torah means, then you can be able to change your life to that path. You read all the days of your life in the Torah. And they bring here a true story that happened with the Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Vedat, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky Zechat Tzadik Lebracha. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, he was, when he first came to the States, he actually came to, if I remember correctly in his biography, he first came to the United States. He didn't have any parnassah here, so someone told him there was a position in Toronto. In Toronto, back in the day, didn't have a Torah community like it has today. And he was there. And it was after Shavuot. It was second day of Shavuot. I just finished reading Megillat Ruth. And Rav Yaakov is walking home with a friend, with one of the people in the shul. And he says to the guy, I'm no better than Elimelech. So this guy says, Rav Yaakov, what are you talking about? He says, Elimelech left Eretz Yisrael because he was worried of Parnassah. I was living in New York, where there was Torah. And I left because of Parnassah, just like Elimelech went to Moab. I came here to Toronto. And there's no Torah, and I have children. How am I raising them here? He said, that's it. I have to go. I was wrong for coming here. He resigned his position, and he came back to New York. Eventually, he became Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Vedat. But that's what it means. You learn the Torah, you read your days in there. You see how you're supposed to behave. And you have to take it to heart, and you have to do it. But Abraham was instructed. There was no food around. He had to go. Right? But he could survive in New York. He just wouldn't have that much leisure. Right? It's like...
He didn't have the Torah at the time.
All right. Those who didn't have the Torah. Was Avram... Right. It's a whole other issue. Okay. So, Rabotai, to quickly review the lessons that we learned today. First lesson was and the stress was on matzeva being matzev, being the situation. Don't create a situation that you think you're stuck in and you can't move out. The truth is, we're very strong, stronger than those elephants, because we have a neshama from Hashem, which can soar to the skies, and we can reach as far as we want to, as long as we have the right incentive, knowing that we're the children of Hashem. The second lesson that we looked at was and don't erect yourselves a statue. Don't make your pleasures in this world the primary in the world. They're not going to bring you happiness. It might give you some fun. Fun is okay if it's in a good path, a kosher way. But it shouldn't be what we're stressing all the time. And the true happiness comes from contentment, coming from being happy, from doing Torah mitzvot in a happy way. And if you're not there at this moment, you don't feel happy to Torah mitzvot this way, you will, as long as you want to, and you start putting it into it, you start learning, you start understanding, the happiness will come. Guaranteed. I've never met somebody who's true learning and praying and doing things who doesn't feel happiness. You won't have other happiness. You can go and eat your pizza and your steak and everything else, and then afterwards it's all gone. Then it's not going to be there. But Torah, you're going to come home and you're going to say, wow. And the deep insights and the way of the thought process changes and everything, the whole person changes. That's true happiness. And our third lesson, which was really two, we had the king had to have the Sefer Torah with him at all times, because at all times we need direction. And that's why they say a man without a spouse is not complete, because he cannot have complete directions in life without a spouse, without the wife. Therefore, you have to get married younger, right? To those who are not married yet, you know you have to get married younger. And this way you can have a wife earlier who can put you on the right direction. Obviously, you cannot be a complete, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. You cannot be completely off and say, I'm going to get married and everything's going to be okay. You also have to start working on the right path. So then together, you become shalem, you become full and complete. And the second part of that lesson was that our lives are already written in the Torah. The way to live, how to live, it's all written in there. We have to read it, and we have to live it. It's a living Torah, right? Rabbi Ari Kaplan has this book, The Living Torah, right? Because it's Hayim. It's those who hold it, it's the whole life in there. It's a living Torah, right? The Gemara says, the fools who stand up for a Sefer Torah, but they don't stand up for Talmidei Chachamim. Because why? Because they're the living Torah. They're actually reading it and doing it. And you can just look at them and you can read the stories of them, the biographies, and you see the greatness of Talmidei Chacham and see how to live our lives. And just mentioning biographies, if anyone wants to take my advice, they have very nice biographies from a lot of different companies. But some of the crucial ones, in my opinion, to learn would be first, the more exciting ones would be Rav Pam, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, also very, very deep. So much lessons you're going to learn on how to be a better person. But more so how to deal with Judaism and times that we're in would be Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch. And obviously, you can't really get away without reading Maran Shalom Tzion, his biographies, because a lot of our lives is based on Rav Yosef's life and the way he passed down the halacha and the Mitzvah and everything like that. The Ben Ish Chai, they have a beautiful one in English. There's so many. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, if you can get a hands on that. Also, there's so much out there, and it's exciting. They write them very nicely, and really will change your mindset of how to live like a Jew. And you'll see how these Gedolim live, these great individuals live. People in our generation right before, and it'll just give you such insight that you can't think and live the way you lived before. It's going to have to change. Your mindset's going to change. Rav Yaakov Galinsky, that's an exciting one too. They have it in English also. That's a very exciting one too. It's just, he has stories, and like it's amazing. And Be'ez Hashem, this is the Chodesh Elul. This is the time that we need to change. We need to go through the process. And one of the best things to do, right? You can learn Sharei Tshuva. You can learn all these Musar Sfarim. They're great, and you should. And we have to. But another way to reach that is by reading stories. By reading stories of our Talmidei Chachamim, seeing how they live, and aspire to that, and to know that we can do it too. They were just like us, right? But they worked on themselves. The Chafetz Chaim says they worked and they tried and they did it. As Hashem, we should be zocheh to achieve greatness, because we are great. Don't sell ourselves short, and we should be zocheh. Tonight being the first of Elul, right? The first of Elul. So, Hashem, we should be zocheh to a great Elul Rahamim, is that Hashem, a merciful Elul, and we should be zocheh to the Yom Hadin that it comes out. We know Hashem is judging us, so we have nothing to be worried about, but we have to have emunah b'tachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this way, we'll be zocheh to Gul Shlema, Meher B'Yameinu, Amen. Shabbat Shalom Lekulam.